25 projects, $1 store budget, and a whole lot of high-end style. I'm Sonja, and if you love a good designer dupe, you're in the right place. Today is all about the look for less as we tackle a massive marathon of 2026's biggest home trends. We're turning plastic, wood, and glass into high-end treasures. No fluff, no filler, just 25 plus transformations you can do this weekend. Ready? Let's go. We're kicking things off with a dupe of Pottery Barn's oversized handcrafted sea glass garland, which retails for $128. Mine, it costs under $5 to make. Last fall, I picked up these assorted plastic ornaments from Temu. I had originally planned to use them for a Christmas DIY, but they weren't quite the right size. Instead of letting them go to waste, I saved them knowing they'll be perfect for something else. And this garland was it. Since I didn't have enough of one size, I decided to alternate between larger and smaller ornaments to stretch the garland's length and add visual interest. To give the clear plastic that frosted sea glass look, I used Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover Clear Gloss Spray. Pro tip, give them a full coat while rotating them to ensure even coverage. You can sink them into a floral foam or place them on pencils if they have holes, or skewers to spray them easily. Now for the fun part, the rope. The Pottery Barn version threads the rope through the ornaments, but I was about to melt holes into the plastic, so instead I wrapped nautical rope around the knots, tied a small knot, and left a tail to attach them. Yes, I did burn myself a little because what's a DIY project without at least one minor injury? I knotted and glued each ornament individually, then tied them together to form the garland. I used the hot glue to attach them together. It was a bit time consuming, but so worth it. You could totally recreate this with Dollar Tree ornaments too. The result is beautiful piece that works for summer decor and beyond. At the end, I simply left a larger loop of rope and tied a knot at the top to finish it off. That became the end of my garland. I think these turned out so cute, and the best part, they cost me under $5 to make. I'm really happy with how they came out. They are perfect for summer decor with a coastal beachy vibe, but honestly, you could style them year round depending on your space. Next up is a dupe of Pottery Barn Artisan Studio Rope Candle, which sells for a whooping $79. I recreated the look using a citronella candle I found at Dollarama for $4.50. As you can see, the pot already had great texture, but I wanted to mimic the rope detailing from the inspiration piece. I used a nautical rope and hot glued it around the entire pot. Then, for even more authentic look, I mixed a bit of plaster of Paris into white paint and applied it over the rope to add texture and blend everything together. Once it dried, I painted the inside edge to unify the look without touching the candle wax. The great thing about citronella candle is that once they burn down, you can clean out the pot and reuse it, just pop in another candle or even make your own. And for under $6, this might be my favorite dupe so far. If you're enjoying these Pottery Barn inspired DIYs and want more high-end look for less, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got tons of budget-friendly decor ideas coming your way. Starting this DIY with I think my favorite project of the three, and it will be this bunny print. I had found this bunny on Canva, and I had actually switched it to black and white, and I also cut off a part of his body, so just the head is in the frame. And then I picked up this canvas over at Dollarama. You can get them at Dollar Tree, I'm pretty sure, as well. I love using these because they have a really nice frame. It's not the best quality frame, but I love using it, and I have made so many different signs with it, and it seems to hold up throughout the seasons. I will be removing the canvas because I do want to expose the little wood frame. I am just marking it off where I'm going to cut the canvas. I'm just using regular scissors, and as you can see, when I flipped the wood part, it actually has a really nice looking frame with a little bit of definition in it. So what you want to do is you want to cut the canvas around the marked section, so that way it fits, the frame fits right on top of it. You are going to flip it to where you're going to be adding the print on, so that way you're adding it on to the correct size. And I'm quite impressed that I actually cut it pretty close. Usually there's a flap overlapping, and this time it looked perfect. So I'm just going to mark off where it's kind of the frame's going, just so I know how to glue the print onto it, so that way I'm not covering any parts of the print with the frame. For attaching the print, you can use school glue. You can use really, I don't think I would use hot glue, but I ended up using Mod Podge because I wanted to add some on top of it as well. But you can totally just use school glue if you wanted to. And I'm cutting this out because when I printed it, my printer left some sort of an ink mark on top of right above his head, so I just want to remove that. You could totally leave the whole piece as is and just glue that on, because you are gluing it just right on white, so it wouldn't really matter. But I cut it out. I didn't cut it like perfectly right up against the line, but I did cut it up, leaving a little bit of a white border around it, just so I wouldn't mess up. So I never have luck with these Dollar Tree foam brushes. The bigger ones are okay, but these little ones, they're not a very good quality. There's too much empty space on top, so it has no structure to it. So whenever I'm applying paint or even glue, it just doesn't work. So I'm just switching out the brush and then applying a generous amount. You want to cover all the areas so that way it goes on pretty nicely. I would also like to mention that today's video is part of a collaboration that's hosted by C from Siege DIY. It is a very large collaboration called Easter Around the World, and I encourage you to check out the playlist, which will be linked down below, as well as C's channel. I will have her channel linked down below to get tons and tons of spring and Easter DIY inspirations. Once I had it on a canvas, I added some Mod Podge over top of it as well. You should probably wait till this dries. I don't have such patience, and I just went ahead and did it right away. And then I proceeded on gluing the frame, and I am using hot glue to do that. You want to be careful that you put it right exactly where you want it to go. This tends to be sometimes an issue for me, and I mess up in this part as well, but I did take my time and made sure I put it exactly where I wanted it to go. And there you have it. I think this turned out so cute. I absolutely love the way he looks. You can find these prints where I live at Bouclair, and they are around $20-$30. Mine was about $2, and I love him. We are kicking things off with a McGee & Co. dupe, and I am recreating their beautiful scalloped marble bowl without the hefty price tag. Obviously, I won't be using real marble, but I found a way to achieve a high-end look on a budget using air-dry clay from Dollarama. To shape my bowl, I'm using a taco shell mold. You might remember this from a previous DIY where I tried making a concrete bowl, which wasn't my most successful project. This time we're getting it right. To prep your mold, if your bowl isn't already oiled, you want to spray it with cooking spray, apply a thin layer of Vaseline, or use plastic wrap so the clay doesn't stick. Next, I'm going to roll out my clay, and I warmed it up. You want to warm it up with your hands first to make it easier to work with, then using rolling pin to flatten it. When flattening it, make sure it's not too thin to prevent cracking, especially around the edges. Next, I'm draping the clay over the mold and trimming it to size. Once I'm happy with the size, I'm using my wet fingers to smooth out any rough edges for the soft handcrafted look. Now, slow drying is the key. To prevent cracking, I'm covering it with a damp tea towel and letting it dry for 48 hours. I removed the tea towel halfway through and took out the mold so the bowl could dry evenly. Once fully dry, my clay bowl had a light gray tone, which looked beautiful, but since I was trying to dupe the marble bowl, I wanted to have a closer look to my inspiration, so I gave it a coat of paint. To finish, I applied a dishwasher-safe Mod Podge, which added a subtle sheen and gave it a more realistic finish. So what do you guys think? Would you try this DIY? Let me know in the comments. $100, given you can use a 40% coupon, which will still be around 60, and Walmart isn't far behind. But today we're making one for a fraction of the cost using Dollar Tree supplies. First, I'm going to build my bunny shaped. I used two different size clear plastic bowls and filled the larger one with Dollar Tree rocks to weigh it down since I'll be using mine outdoor. I layered the glue and the rocks until I used up all my rocks, and then I finished off with a layer of the glue on top. If you want extra durability, use E6000 or Gorilla Glue instead of just hot glue gun. Once all the rocks were in, I hot glued the other large bowl over on the top of it, and then I went in with more glue just around the edging where they meet. I glued the smaller balls together, and then I glued the smaller bowl to the top, making sure everything was lined up. And then I added bunny ear. I repurposed them from a previous DIY, but you can also use Dollar Tree bunny headbands or bend floral wire into shape. Speaking of using variety of supplies to make this bunny can be made a few different ways. You can use different size of those styrofoam bowls. Balls. You can only use one set of bigger bowls and just go with that. I mean, there are so many different ways you can make this. Next step is to cover the whole thing with moss. I use green floral moss from Dollarama because Dollar Tree only had the brown toned version, but they were all $1.75. Remember, I'm in Canada. I started at the top and worked my way down, gluing small sections at a time for the most natural look. With everything that I used except the bunny ears, it had cost me $1.75. So my total cost for this was $19 and I think 25 cents. And if I incorporate the glue sticks that I use, I made this for around $20. I used 7 bags of the green moss to cover the whole bunny. The last area I was putting green floral moss was the ears. Once I was done, I wanted to seal it, so I used a spray. You want to seal it with some sort of a spray adhesive. I used hairspray, but a spray glue would work just as fine. This prevents shedding, especially if you're using it outdoors. Now, to finish it, I did tie a simple ribbon around its neck for an extra touch of charm. The ribbon I picked up at Dollar Tree a few years ago. I love how this turned out. Do you think I should place it in a wicker basket, like my inspiration here? Or let me know in the comments. Or do you think I should do in more of a terracotta pot or some sort of a planter? Let me know in the comments. Our first project is a Pottery Barn inspired Forsythia wreath. This bright and cheerful piece is perfect for spring, bringing a pop of yellow to your front door or interior decor. Instead of paying retail prices, I'm going to show you how to make a stunning version using affordable materials. The materials that I needed for this was the bunny wreath form from Dollarama, which I picked up for $5. Also, Forsythia stems, they are currently at Dollarama for $1.75. I had some from previous years. You're going to need some wire cutters, hot glue and glue sticks, floral wire, which is optional for extra support. So first, this braid form was actually wrapped in a wire, and which I hadn't realized when I first bought it. To separate it, I used wire cutters to carefully snip away extra wire and remove the bunny shape, leaving just the circular base. I had a mix of older and newer Forsythia stem, and I noticed that the newer ones had slightly larger flowers and were more open. I will show you that in just a little bit. I cut the long stems down into smaller branch-like pieces to create a fuller, more natural look. I started by attaching two longer Forsythia stems to the wreath base first and securing them with a small piece of cut wire and a bit of hot glue. This created a strong foundation. Then one by one, I inserted the smaller Forsythia branches into the frame, making sure to distribute them evenly around the wreath. Some pieces stayed in place on their own, while others needed a dab of hot glue to ensure they were secure. Here is the difference between the new Forsythia and the old one. I checked for any sparse areas and filled them in with extra stems. Once finished, I hung it up on my home sign at the front door, and I absolutely love how it brightens up the space. My DIY cost around $8 in total, And compared to Pottery Barn's $41 price tag. Next, we're making a vase inspired by McGee & Co.'s Loeffler Randall Tabitha vase, which retails around $62. I found a similar shaped vase at Dollarama for just $3, and we're going to give the designer look with paint. So for this, you will need a glass vase. Like I said, I picked up mine for $3 at Dollarama. I also used suede paint in olive by Decor, a little bit of plaster, which I will show you what I'm using it for at the end, and of course you're going to need a paintbrush, and that's it. So since glass is smooth and doesn't absorb paint well, I applied 2 full coats of this Decor suede paint. This paint has a slightly grainy texture which helps mimic the subtle texture of the McGee & Co. vase. I did wait fully between the coats for it to dry fully in between the coats. And for the third coat, I mixed a tiny amount of plaster into the paint. This helped thicken it and provided a full coverage, ensuring no light would shine through the vase. I avoided painting the entire inside, but did coat the rim for a finished look. Once dried, the vase had the perfect smooth yet textured finish, very similar to the high-end version. My final cost was under $4 compared to $62 retail. First project, I'm going to be using this bowl that I picked up at Dollar Tree from their Valentine's section for $1.50, and we're going to be recreating this white marble ruffle bowl from our house at $269 on sale. I obviously am not willing to spend that kind of money, and I'm okay if my bowl is plastic as long as it's stylish looking. I'm not planning on putting any food in here, so I'm good to go with plastic and acrylic paint. So I gave this bowl 2 coats of white paint. You want to give some time in between to dry. You could also buy a glossier white spray paint, and that will give you a bit of the shine like the marble paint like marble bowls have or marble has, or you could also spray it with a glossy finish if you want that bit of a shine on it. I was okay with the white dull paint. I quite prefer that look. So I just left mine as is after the second coat had dried. Once I was done painting the second coat, I did let it dry again, and then I went ahead and got some of my craft sponges and my dark wax. You could also water down some brown paint and do this as well. It's all about blending here. So I wanted my brushes to be wet, so it's a little bit easier to blend it up. And I also put some of this wax on a piece of wood. I just had some garden stakes that were all broken up, so I just used that, but you could also use popsicle stick if you really wanted to, just so that way I'm not dipping the wet sponges into the wax directly. So this is antiquing wax, not is a finishing wax, and I just went very lightly on just different areas, because the bowl that from our house does have a bit of a yellowish staining at the bottom, so I wanted to recreate that. You totally don't have to do this. You can recreate it, create whatever you like. You could also add some lines if you wanted to, or like I said, just leave it as is. So this, I took the wax, put it on, and then I flipped the sponge and just use the wet part to kind of blend it in. And then on the areas where I went a little bit heavier, and I ended up adding a little bit of paint, white paint, just to, like I said, just to blend it all in. I love these kind of projects where you can just put your own touches on, and no matter what, every single one of them will turn out differently. I think this is going to look great with some Easter eggs or some spring, even some spring flowers in there. I can't wait to use it. So the next project, I'm going to be making some Easter eggs. I love these moss eggs that I saw at Pottery Barn, but they are 19 for set of 6, which isn't overly pricey, but I had all of the supplies on hand, so I figured I will recreate. I did make only 3 of them, but a package of eggs at Dollar Tree cost me $1.50, and the moss was free because I had it on hand. But you can totally get a package at Dollarama and Dollar Tree, depending on which one you're looking for, from anywhere from $1.50 to $3. And you are not going to use the whole package, even on the 6 eggs. Well, you might, for 6 eggs, you might use a whole package. So I glued these together, and then I ended up doing 2 different ones because I had 2 different styles of moss, and I just wanted to see how the 2 different mosses will look on the eggs. This is very hard to do without burning yourself. So if you have some protective covers and you can handle wearing gloves while you do this, I highly recommend it. Otherwise, you be prepared, you will burn your fingers. So I believe the first moss that I'm going to be working with is called a deer moss, and I was just trying to scrape off a little bit of the dirt from behind it, just so it's a little bit thinner, not as thick. You don't have to do this. Your eggs will be much larger than once they are finished, which is okay. And then once I had all this moss on there and it was nicely pressed in, and I gave the egg a little haircut just to kind of loosen up some of the flyaways that were on top of the egg. Now then I proceeded on putting this type of moss. I'm not sure what this one's called, and I wasn't an overly huge fan of this one. I thought the other one worked a little bit better, but I thought I'd show you both, and you decide which one you would like to use if you decide to recreate this project. I think these eggs will go really well with my decor, as is very earthy and natural decor that I use in my house. If you haven't seen how I decorate my house, make sure you head on over to my home channel, and here it is in that bowl that I created. I think this looks really nice, and like I said, perfect for my decor. And the last piece, this one I kind of decided on a whim to do, is a little ring or napkin ring for your Easter table setting. I saw these at Pottery Barn, and I thought they were so cute. But as you can see, the price of them was not so cute at set of four for $56. So I had similar ribbon on hand, so I thought this would work well. So I took some of this wire, cut out two pieces, bent it in the shape of an ear, and then I had hot glued. Once I had bent them, I did hot glue them to the ring, and the ring is actually a bath shower curtain ring. I have several of these on hand for the purpose of creating the napkin rings. So I hot glued this. You want to give it a little bit of time so it sets, so that way you don't have a problem with it moving too much when you are wrapping it with ribbon. So for the ring, I did use ribbon as well as just some kitchen twine. So once it had a little bit of time to set the glue, I ended up wrapping the ribbon onto the ear. You could go the other way. I would just make the ears a touch smaller, so that way you can cover it with the width of the ribbon. And then I repeat the same process on the other ear. I do trim off the excess ribbon first on the bottom, and then once the glue had set on both of them, I do trim it around the wire as well, just to shape the ear a little bit better. This does turn out looking a little different, but definitely the idea was there. I was even debating taking the twine and just wrapping it around the ear as well, which is another option if you don't have this type of ribbon. I had this on hand, so I wanted to use it, as it's a bit of a awkward ribbon to use, as it doesn't shape very well. So I was glad that I figured out a project that I can use it on. So once that was on, I went ahead with the twine and just wrapped it around. First, I wrapped it a little bit around the ear just to smooth out, so you don't see the cuts of where I cut the ribbon off. And I'm not putting hot glue everywhere, just in certain spots, so that way it just stays in place. So I would wrap it a couple rows, and then I would put a little bit of hot glue, and then wrap some more, and then a little bit of hot glue, so that way you have somewhere to hold and you're not burning your fingers all the way through, and it does keep things in place. So I will be making four of these. I did here just to show you how I'm going to be making it, but I will be creating four of these just for our table setting. And several weeks ago, I did share quite a bit of table setting stuff that I did, dupes that I've created from Pottery Barn, and I'm excited to use those during Easter festivities, as I absolutely love the placemats as well as the napkins. I'm gonna show you here with a different type of napkin, just so I can show you how the white looks against colored, but I am contemplating using my natural linen ones instead. So here is the napkin ring, and I think it turned out so cute. Well, this concludes my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks for watching. For my first DIY, I braved the snowy weather to head outside and find the perfect large branch to create a fall silver dollar eucalyptus tree. This is a crate and barrel dupe, and I wanted it to be around 8 feet tall. And luckily, I found a suitable one near my neighbor's house, who also happens to be my mother-in-law. So I had permission to cut it down. Using a small handheld chainsaw, I cut the branch and brought it inside. To create the base, I picked up a flower pot from Dollarama for $4 and a bag of concrete from Home Depot. The concrete I chose had a pebbly texture, which worked well for this project. If you need a smoother finish for a different DIY, you might want to choose a finer mix. And here is what the branch looks like that I decided for this project. I mixed equal parts of water and concrete, stirring it until fully combined. This took a bit of effort, but it wasn't difficult, just a bit of a workout. Once the concrete was ready, I placed my tree branch into the pot. You can mix the concrete separately and then pour it into the pot, but I found it easier to mix everything directly in the planter. For stability, I had my husband hold the branch upright while I secured it with wooden supports and heavy objects on top to prevent it from tipping. It took about an hour for the concrete to set. One set, I headed back to Dollarama and I picked up silver dollar eucalyptus branches for $3 each. Initially, I bought 11, but after reassessing, I went back and purchased 7 more. I trimmed each eucalyptus branch into smaller pieces and hot glued them onto my tree branch. Another option would be drilling small holes into the branch and inserting the stems, but I found hot glue to be a quicker and easier method. The original inspiration tree was priced at $600 from Crate and Barrel. My version came in just under $60, a huge savings. Once the leaves were attached, I made a few final trims for a more balanced look. Also felt that the middle needed a bit more filling up with branches. And here it is, all filled up and trimmed up, and I love how it looks. I placed my tree in a wicker basket I already had, similar to the inspiration piece. To the basket, I am also going to add some burlap. You can add some rocks and deer moss or any type of filler that you think would look good. I love how it turned out. It makes such a statement in my front entryway for a fraction of the price. For my final DIY, I picked up a $5 pot from Dollarama and decided to give it an old world stone effect using joint compound. This is another Olive Atelier inspiration, and here are the two pots that kind of gave me an idea on the texture and the direction that I wanted this pot to go. Wearing gloves, I applied joint compound directly to the pot, creating organic texture by spreading it in different directions. I made sure to cover at least a quarter of the interiors inside, since some of it will be visible, depending on what's placed inside. Once the compound dried, I lightly sanded off any rough or overly thick areas. Next, I searched my basement for paint and I found a mystery shade I don't recall purchasing, but it turned out to be perfect. I used it as a base color and I painted the whole thing. And then I went in and layered cocoa Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and also I mixed the cocoa Rust-Oleum chalk paint with some of that base color to add dimensions. Using a wet rag, I blended the darker and lighter tones, adjusting until I achieved the aged stone look I wanted. If one color felt too overpowering, I simply went back in with the base shade to tone it down. The final result, absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, it turned out to be too short for my eucalyptus tree, so I'll be on the lookout for a taller planter. But I know I'll find a perfect spot for this one. West Elm, which is a sister company to Pottery Barn under Williams Sonoma, sell these adorable bunny statues, and I fell in love with them. The middle-sized bunny retails for $68, but we're making ours for just a few dollars. I picked up this wood bunny from Dollarama for $3 and decided to customize it to achieve that similar high-end look. I experimented with different stains, special walnut and old American, and settled on using my gel stain, which was a bit dry but still usable. The wooden bunny absorbed a lot of stain I was applying with the rag and making some areas darker than I wanted. So I proceeded on dabbing some of that stain off and then rubbing it onto the bunny for the lesser stain effect. So after the bunny was done, I was still a little bit unhappy with how dark some of the areas were. So to fix this, I applied some white wax to lighten it up. Although the final result wasn't exactly what I had envisioned, I think it has a beautiful vintage feel and I might go and grab another bunny to experiment further. This is another easy dupe and is such an easy way to bring in some subtle seasonal decor. Moving on to the next project, a vintage inspired gold frame. I had this 5x7 inch frame with this 4x6 opening from Dollar Tree that cost me around $1.25. That was before the prices went up to $1.50. To transform it, I use my favorite metallic gold spray paint, which I also love to use during the holidays. Once the base coat dried, I layered sponge dabbed accents using spun gold, frosted cappuccino, yellow gold, and a touch of black. This layering technique creates a rich aged gold look similar to what you see on Etsy and in high-end decor stores. I'm going to go in again with the same colors but adjust the balance slightly, applying a bit more of the one over the other. I want to achieve that vintage gold look, so I'm being careful not to add too much black or frosted cappuccino. The second time around, I use more gold while still allowing some of the black to show through. Once dry, I framed a print that I'll be sharing in the description box. These types of frames are sold at all the high-end stores and on Etsy for a much higher price, with prints in them, and I wanted something simple, so I was able to create mine for a very little cost. For an authentic oil painting effect, you could also use Mod Podge, a trick I've shared in past videos. But for this small frame, I kept it simple, letting the gold tones and vintage-inspired artwork shine. Next up, a high-end watering can dupe. Designer-style watering cans can cost upwards of $15 to $30, but I created mine for just $3. I found a budget-friendly watering can at a Dollarama, and I gave it a metallic gold spray paint base. And then I went in and added yellow, gold, spun gold, and black for depth. I used a similar technique to the frame by dabbing the paint and using a craft sponge to create an antique, slightly distressed look. The final result, a vintage-inspired piece perfect for styling in home decor or an indoor garden setup. Now moving on to the last DIY. I love using books, decorative books, to decorate either on floating shelves or in my hutch or on top of the coffee table, fireplace, and whatnot. So I had seen this stack of books, and the price is per book. And as you can see, it is $69, which is not overly you know, budget breaking or whatnot, but I do feel that I can make it for almost free. So I just picked out a book from my book stack. I wanted it to have a hardcover, and I think this one would work really good. I originally wanted to make a couple of them just to give couple different sizes look, but I realized once I started doing gathering my supplies for this DIY that I only had scrap pieces of this drop cloth. I for some reason thought I had a full pack of it, but nevertheless, you can make as many as you want. I'm just going to show you how I made this one, and the process would be exactly the same for all the rest of the books that you would want to make. So like I said, you want to pick a hardcover book. I just think that would be easier to work with, preferably something that's not as bright colored as this, because a little bit was showing. And you could also paint the cover in case if you only have the bright colored books. And then to create that design on here, I am adding a good amount of hot glue and just little strips of it, but you want it to be fairly thick. And you want this to completely dry before you move on to the next step, because you don't want to squish it. I did mine about an inch apart, and then once they were dry, I added Mod Podge in the middle, in between. And then I'm also going to add Mod Podge on top and bottom. And when I'm applying my drop cloth, now this is a linen drop cloth that I picked up at Dollarama. I have used this for many DIYs, from pillowcases to table placemats, all sorts of stuff. Even a tablecloth I've made with it. I just absolutely love this drop cloth and how versatile it is. If you cannot find any at your local dollar store, Home Depot carries it as well. It's a lot bigger pack, and at this point it might even be cheaper than at Dollarama what I was paying for it, because once you calculate the size of the roll. So when you are attaching this, you want it to be very tight, so there's no like loose pieces. It's not curling up anywhere. You want it to go very tight over top of this, so that way it can show all the little designs on it. So once I felt like it wasn't moving as much, I ended up adding some Mod Podge over top of it as well. And then once I finished on the top, I went ahead and added some onto the front cover and the back cover. And to keep the linen in place while the Mod Podge is curing, I did give it a couple dots of hot glue on the inside and folded the linen into it. I actually end up using the hot glue for all the folds, just to make sure that it stays in place. Also going to clip it just to make sure it stays in place. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Once it was all done, I did go ahead and add some Mod Podge on top of it as well. And then, like I mentioned, for the folds, I'm going to be hot gluing them. But here I'm just showing you how nicely the design is showing up. And I'm sure most of you know, I don't know if people did this here as well, but I grew up in Europe. I moved to Canada when I was 16. And when I when we used to go to school, we used to have to, even in grade like from 1 to 8, even in high school, we used to have to purchase all of our books, like the math book, the science book, all those books. And in order because they had to last me a whole year, and the covers weren't hardcover or anything like that, so we used to get some either butcher paper or wrapping paper or just a really nice paper or even newspaper and wrap the books in it to protect the covers. So this is what this had reminded me of doing, is wrapping our textbooks for school. So if you ever wrapped a book, this is, you just do exactly the same thing that you would have done when you were wrapping the book. I think this is going to be such a great addition to my decorating. I'm thinking I might use it on a floating shelf just to lift some decor up, and it'll add also a really nice look to it. Well, guys, let me know what you think. I think this turned out really nice. Again, like I said, I absolutely love the way it looks. I think it's going to be such a great addition to my decor. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And for my second project, this one was a little more involved, but still very budget friendly. I used the vase I had thrifted and made over a while back. These kinds of vases are super common at thrift stores. I see them all the time. I decided to give mine a more organic, rustic look by adding a handle and wrapping it in a natural rattan finish. For the handle, I used a large paper clip that I bent into shape. I created two little L tabs at the ends, so I glued it securely onto the vase. If you're trying this at home, I recommend using some painter's tape to hold the handle in place while the glue sets. It makes the process so much easier and keeps everything stable while it dries. Now for the wrapping, I picked up some woven placemats at Dollarama for $4 each. I had three, but only ended up using one. These placemats unravel beautifully once you snip the threads that hold them together. Once I had the strands ready, I made sure to glue around the handle first so to sandwich the wire in place. I began wrapping from bottom of the vase, gluing in few key spots to keep everything secure. My inspiration here came from several high-end rattan vases I've seen. Crate and Barrel has a few, Hobby Lobby, and even Walmart carries a Better Homes and Gardens version. But again, we don't have access to these pieces locally, so this was my take on the look. Total cost, just under $7. Quick personal moment here. I had a gallbladder attack last week and I genuinely thought I wasn't going to make it through the night. The pain was unreal. It lasted for about 10 hours and thankfully hasn't returned, but I do have an ultrasound booked just to check things out. If you've ever experienced something like this, I love to hear your story in the comments. It really helps to know we're not alone when stuff like this happens. Once it was fully wrapped, I went in with a bit of any Sloan dark wax, though you can use any antiquing wax you have, just to deepen the color and give it that rich high-end finish. A lot of people actually do this even with store-bought rattan vases since the color can be a little too light. I gave it a bit of a trim off camera too just to clean up any flyaways. I absolutely love how this turned out. It has such a warm designer feel, and now I want to wrap everything in rattan. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you loved this marathon of DIY McGee & Co. dupes and found tons of high-end home decor inspiration for your own space. If you enjoy these budget-friendly DIYs and look for less decorating ideas, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel. And if you're new here, I'd love to have you stick around. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more DIY home decor projects. Thanks again for watching DIYs with Sonja, and I'll see you in the next one. Be using this Dollar Tree bowl. I picked this up right around Valentine's Day. I really love the shape of it, how wavy it is, and the size was pretty good as well. And then I was browsing, actually watching Shop With Me videos for from Olive Atelier, and I came across one that had a similar shape. I did love the way that looked, so I thought I recreated. Now these are dupes. These are not going to be exactly like the original pieces, but I am more using these pieces as my inspiration. So I wanted to add some texture to this bowl as well, not just the paint. So I mixed up some of this beige paint that I had left over from a project that I did last year, and I added some flour into it, quite a bit of it, made it really thick, and this gave it a lot of texture. I painted the inside first, and then I flipped it over and painted the outside. So while I'm painting this, I wanted to talk to you guys about where I've been and what I've been up to. So back in January, I posted a craft room makeover video, and I have been back at it making over my craft room simply because I needed to create some storage for all the overflow of daycare stuff that I have accumulated again, and I had to pare down some of the craft supplies. But to be honest with you, there was a lot of stuff that I knew I just wasn't going to use because I've been either had it for way too long and never ended up reaching for it, and or just my style has shifted in a different direction and it was time to let it go and maybe have someone else enjoy it. So I did donate a lot of my decor pieces that I like I said, we haven't been reaching for, to Goodwill. And also my mother-in-law took some, my sister came and took some. So lots of new homes for the decor pieces, and they did not end up in a garbage. And I did the same thing with some of my craft supplies. I did repurpose some of them for the daycare DIYs, well, daycare crafts, or even sensory bins that I could, and then the rest of the stuff was donated. And now I am just taking my time in organizing everything, just making sure that everything has its home. So that way, when I am putting stuff away, I know exactly where it goes, especially the daycare supplies and bins and all that stuff. So while I was doing that, I did completely dismantle my craft room again and had to put it back together. So I had no space, no area where to do DIYs. So I'm back at it again. The space is not perfect by any means. It is a work in progress, but at least I have space to do my own DIYs. So just so you kind of know what's been going on, and I did take the Easter weekend off as well, just to relax and kind of decompress. So once the bowl was all painted up, I did let it dry a little bit, not completely, just because I needed some of that beige paint for blending. And then I took my craft sponge and I added some water to it, made it nice and wet, and then I added a couple different paint blobs to my tray. There was iced cappuccino, there was black, and then I think I was going to do a bronzy color as well, but I did not end up using it because I just had no use for it. I was thinking about adding gray into it, but changed my mind. But I did have to go and add a little bit of white, just because I was finding that the black was a little too dark. So it did make a little bit of a gray paint, but I ended up blending it with a lot of the beige that was left in there and the iced cappuccino. So then it wasn't as gray as it started off with. So I hope you guys like I said, like this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you are enjoying it so far. Now, one advice that I can give you with this sponging technique is blend, 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 and blend as much as you want until you achieve the look that you're going after. I love the way this turned out. I love all the texture, and let me show you how I style it in my space. For my next one, I picked up a couple birds. They are the concrete birds from Dollar Tree. One has a pointy head and one is a little bit fatter and with a little bit rounder head. And I'm going to use that same Annie Sloan cocoa paint and paint them, covering them fully. With the little blue one, I did let some of that blue just trickle through a little bit, but not too much. And then I'm going to be showing you two different ways to add wax to these birds to kind of create similar looks, but a little bit different. As you can see, I am back into kind of, I'm real, like, I don't even know how to explain my style right now, but I'm really liking these more natural decor pieces throughout my house. I was trying to figure out what the style is called, and I do think it's a little bit of a French country, but a lot of the pieces, especially the next piece that I'm going to be making over, they call it organic. So I don't know what to call my style then. So as you can see, I brushed the white wax on and then I wiped it off, and then just went with whatever was left on that brush and just filled in the spots that maybe I rubbed off too much. For the next one, I did not do any rubbing off. I went and I just spread it out as much as I could with a brush, trying to get into all the little grooves and crevices that this bird had. They were fabulous for this type of a makeover. And then I just took my rag once I was finished and just wiped off if there were any chunks on there, but I did not rub it in. And I think these birds turned out absolutely stunning. I just love this makeover. I think, like I said, they're going to be great to use all year round, but also great for spring decor. For my next DIY, I picked up these snakes. Now, just a word of advice, Dollar Tree sells these for $1.25 when they have them. Our Dollar Tree didn't have them, but the Dollarama had them for $4 because they were kits. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be using any of the paint brushes maybe, but not the paint. So I did pay a little bit more for them. And I am removing the head and the tail. Now, some of the heads I just broke off and tails, but some I had to cut off. So see what you have to do, what works. Like I said, the scissors did work because it's just a little string under there, and then a little bit of glue, but like I said, some just came off and some I did have to cut. Then once I had them all cut, now you can make this different sizes. I just kept them all the same. And before I actually assembled them, I was going to paint them. So I was going to actually use that same cocoa paint and make a bit of a stain, like a white or a wash with it. But I tested it on a head of the snake and I did not love the way that looked. So I ended up going and getting my stain, and I'm going to be using a special walnut in Rattan stain. I did do my coffee tables last year, the top with this stain. I do love the look of the stain, but I just wanted to make sure that I was going to like it on this type of wood because I don't really even know what this is. What type of wood look this is. So I used my rag and I just rubbed it on all over, and I just love the way this turned out. I think this is going to look great, especially with the new reno that we are going to be doing in my kitchen. I think this is going to look fabulous with that. So just want to cover the whole thing. And if you want it a little bit darker, you could go over it one more time. I also want to say, if you're stopping by my channel for the very first time, welcome. My name is Sonja, and on this channel you will find home decor DIYs as well as furniture makeovers and thrift store upcycles. So if this is something that you enjoy watching, I would love it if you consider subscribing and pressing the notification bell so you don't miss out any of my future uploads. And those of you that are continuously watching me, thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me. So once the stain, all the three pieces were stained, I used a little bit of hot glue just to attach the ends. So I made my first circle, and then I ended up threading the snake through that circle and gluing it together, and then threading the other one through the circles and gluing it together. This is definitely a high-end dupe that I had seen. I think Crate and Barrel sells these. I've seen them at HomeSense, and this was just for $12. It was a good buy. It would be even cheaper if you went with a Dollar Tree snake. And finally, the last project in today's video is inspired by McGee & Co.'s woven hurricanes. These retail from $34 to $38 each, but I made mine for just $8 total. I started with a rattan placemat I found at Dollarama for $4.50 and two clear hurricane vases from Dollar Tree in different heights. This idea actually came full circle. I originally inspired my friend Sonja to try a woven placemat vase, and then her version inspired me to create this one. I'll link her project in the corner if you want to check it out. I unraveled the placemat by cutting a few threads and used hot glue to attach the strips to the base of each vase. If you prefer, you can use E6000 or glass glue for extra hold, but hot glue gun worked well for me. I wrapped 4 rows of rattan around each vase, securing it in a few spots for a clear, minimal look. To finish them off, I protected the glass with paper and painter's tape and gave the rattan a coat of the same nutmeg spray paint. To add a bit more depth, I lightly misted on some black and leather brown spray paint, just to mimic the natural tone variations seen in the McGee & Co. originals. After a final touch-up and drying time, they turned out so good. I think they're a pretty close dupe, stylish texture, and perfect for both indoor and outdoor styling. Or would cost me around $8 versus 57 that it was on the Pottery Barnes website. Now moving on to another inspiration, going back to the fringed linen, they had these napkins, and I thought they were great. Again, set of four in the color that I really liked. They were $68. A little steep for napkins that most likely might end up getting stained so bad that you are going to have to toss them after several reuses anyways. So I went ahead with that same material that I had, and from, just to refresh your memory, from the Dollarama, I cut a piece off of it to about the size of that I thought a napkin size would be. You could take an actual napkin and put it up against and measure it out. I just eyeballed it, and then again it had that double end, so cut that off because you can't fringe that. And then I went ahead and started fringing it, and to me it's such a satisfying process to pull the string out. So with the whole piece of fabric that I picked up at Dollarama for $4, I did have it on hand, but I'm still gonna count it as paying $4 plus tax for it. I was able to make one tablecloth and about 5 napkins. So not bad at all for $4, whereas it would have cost me well over $150 for the table runner and napkins, 4 napkins. So here it is. I absolutely love it, and so very close to the original inspiration. Now, to elevate the look of your table setting, you need some lighting or some candles or candelabras, and my goodness, this Pottery Barn have lots of it. Lots of different shapes, styles, looks, different materials that it's made out of. I did, however, settle on this hurricane candle holder with gold accents, simply because I thought, what a great way to use some of my leftover lids from um, all the Bath and Body Works candles because I have been saving all those lids. And I thought that turned out that would work really good for the base of the this candle holder. Now, as you saw, the small price of the small was $59 and a large one was $134. Mine was kind of in between as I am using the little vase, the glass vase that you can purchase at Dollar Tree or Dollarama for $1.50, and then I'm going to use some spun gold paint, and I also used antique gold paint as well, just to kind of mix them all up. I was originally going to try and figure out a matching color to the lid, the lip of the lid, but ended up thinking that was much easier to just paint the lid to match the gold that I was going for. You could also, which I would strongly advise you to use some painter's tape just to get a straight, clean line. My husband took my painter's tape and I no longer had it, so I just used freehand, but I strongly recommend using painter's tape. And you can, the nice thing about this, you can make your top gold part as thick or as thin as you want. I did go a little bit thicker than the original inspiration just because I liked it a little bit better that way. So once I had painted the top, I had glued the bottom to the lid, and I did leave the rubber part of the lid on because the glass wedged right in the middle of it. So I thought that was pretty a good way to keep it in place. And then I decided that it did need a second coat of the on the top again, just to smooth it out. So I proceeded on painting the top, and then I also painted the bottom as well, just to match the colors. I added a battery operated candle. Now I would probably use a little bit shorter one, but I just wanted to show you what that would look like. Moving on to my next DIY, we're going to transform this flower pot or planter that I picked up at Dollarama for just $1.75. I was immediately drawn to the little braided design because I knew it would be perfect for mimicking the look of wicker or rattan, which is incredibly popular right now. As you can see, similar pieces can be quite pricey online. To achieve that high-end look, I use dark antiquing wax. I'm using any Sloan, but any brand will work. I simply applied it with a brush, making sure to work into all the grooves to enhance the texture. This was such a simple and easy DIY, but the result is absolutely beautiful. It's the perfect way to add warmth and texture to your space, and I think it truly gives that rattan or wicker effect. What do you guys think? This last DIY is a dupe of the extra large fall olive stem from Crate and Barrel, which retails for $89. I love the look of these oversized olive stems, but I definitely don't love the price. To make my own, I wanted to include it here because we are going to recreate it just for $10. I picked up olive branches from Temu for $10 for 5 stems. Each branch had multiple smaller branches, so I split them in half. Using real branch from my yard, I had glued the olive stems onto them, following the natural curvature to make it look realistic. And don't worry, cutting off a branch from a bush or a tree in your yard does not kill that plant. Any longer branches were trimmed down. This is such a great statement piece in a vase, and I love how high-end it looks for a fraction of the price. If you missed my eucalyptus tree DIY, which was a crate and barrel dupe, I will link it into the corner for you to check out. For under $10, I now have a beautiful statement piece that looks just as good as the high-end version. This is such an easy way to elevate your floral arrangements and add a timeless touch to your decor. And that's it for today's DIYs. I love how each of these projects turned out, and I hope they gave you some inspiration to create your own high-end decor on a budget. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more budget-friendly decor ideas. Let me know in the comments which DIY was your favorite. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.